Sleep paralysis rape. I, F23, always thought sleep paralysis was an over-exaggeration and possibly not real, until it happened to me. I moved into my grandmother's home 8 months ago since it's closer to my internship job. She lives in a cozy old house near a church with a graveyard. I could literally see the graveyard from my bedroom window. My family isn't religious at all. We're all atheists, including myself. Since retiring, my grandmother volunteers at the church helping the homeless. The first few weeks in her home were fine. I had my own room, though it took some time to settle in and truly feel at home. At first I slept deeply, completely exhausted. But as I adjusted, I returned to being my usual light sleeper. It started subtly, just creaks and footsteps in my room at night while I was trying to fall asleep. I brushed it off as normal house noises. Then strange things began happening. One day I found all my books and shoes scattered across the floor. My grandmother swore she hadn't touched them. Another time, I was home alone running a bath. But when I returned, the tub was empty and the faucet had been turned off. I was creeped away but dismissed it, assuming I must have made a mistake or imagined I turned it on. Then came the night it escalated. I was lying in bed trying to drift off when my feet slowly went numb. The sensation crept up my legs. Jerking my legs made it stop, so I'd turn to my side and fall asleep. This happened several more times, but I never thought much of it. Just a strange, fleeting feeling. Another night, after a long day out with friends, my body was heavy and sluggish with exhaustion. As I lay in bed, the numbness returned, starting with my feet. This time I didn't turn over. I drifted towards sleep instead. Suddenly, I woke up completely paralyzed. I couldn't move or breathe. It felt like I was suffocating. I tried to scream, but it wasn't loud enough and no one can hear me. Dread flooded through me. I kept my eyes shut, too terrified to open them. Then I heard a deep, inhuman laughter telling me to relax. I felt a hard grip on my ankles, spreading my legs, and something massaging my thighs. I saw nothing but knew whatever it was wasn't human. When I tried to open my eyes, it was blurry dark figure. Even the street light, which normally brightens my room, didn't affect whatever this was. I screamed at the top of my lungs so loudly, and that still didn't wake up my grandma at all. I thought I was dying. I've never felt fear like that before. And yet, the next thing I knew, something warm and wet, like a tongue, was licking between my legs. It wasn't just physical, it was like energy, like vibrations coursing through my entire body. I was completely powerless until I orgasmed. It wasn't a normal sensation. It was overwhelming, consuming, a full-body experience that left my mind blank. I blinked and found myself back in bed under my covers, free to move as though nothing had happened. I tried to tell myself it was just a nightmare. That morning I felt drained, as though I hadn't slept for days. When I asked my grandma if she heard me call her, she said she didn't hear anything last night. Most nights I'd wake up paralyzed, something rearranging my body and forcing me to orgasm. One time it switched up. I woke up paralyzed again, but this time I was being penetrated from behind and I was laying on my front. The room looked like mine, but it was larger. My bed looked different. I'm surrounded by darkness. I can't make out what's holding me. I could feel claws digging into my back, holding me in place. It was painful and scary, but it forces me to orgasm. Then I wake up in my room, in my bed under the covers, laying on in the same position as if it never happened. That morning feeling depleted, and I would have bad migraines. Every other night, I wake up paralyzed, with strange hands roaming my body. I'm moved around and taken. Sometimes it feels like whatever this thing is has damaged my body, if you know what I mean. When it's over and I'm free to move again, I look at my body and looks untouched. I'm left satiated and completely drained, as though I've been wrung out. I need naps during the day just to function. This has been happening for months, a few times a week. At first I fought it, terrified, but over time I stopped resisting. It's still scary, but I don't mind it as much anymore. I often wake up with unexplained bruises and scars on my body. I really think the house is haunted since we live next to a graveyard. I used to be an atheist, but now I'm convinced this is a demon or some kind of entity. I'm not afraid of it anymore. I just let it happen and go back to sleep. I moved out 2 months ago, and it hasn't happened to me since. I even stayed with my friend for 2 weeks and nothing happened to me. It was the same when I visited my parents for New Year's. I am glad it's over. It's nice to feel energetic and alive.
My best friend cheated on me. Should I forgive him? I, 16H, grew up in a messy home. When I was 6 years old, my parents had a troubled separation. Since then, I live with my mother and grandmother. I haven't seen my father for more than a year, but that's another story I intend to tell here. When I was 9 years old, my grandmother rented the house behind ours to a family. A woman, let's call her Sammy, a girl of about 14, let's call her Louisa, and a boy who was my age, let's call him Alex. Alex and I grew up together since then. He knows everything about my life, just as I know about his. His mother treats me like part of her family. The high point of this story occurred a year ago. I was in the 8th grade when I met a very handsome brunette cat, and we started a relationship. Let's call him Peter. And during this time, Alex introduced me to a friend of his. Let's call him John. Had a girlfriend who didn't get along for various reasons. I believe one of them is because she is very jealous and has already pointed a knife at him. Me and John became friends, and when my relationship with Peter ended, I was very sad, and at the same time, a difference of a month or so, John had a huge crisis in his relationship. It's important to point out that Alex always said that we would make a great couple, but I always thought to take it as a joke since both me and John were dating. One day, as a result of teenage recklessness, we ended up drinking and John kissed me. I remember that delicate kiss with the sweet taste of the drink in our hands, and after that, John and I got closer. A week after our kiss, John broke up with his girlfriend, and after another week, he asked me to marry him on my doorstep with a beautiful pair of wedding rings. My family loved him very much, and everyone said that we would be a beautiful couple and we would definitely get married. However, after 3 months of being together, things went downhill because he always preferred his friends to be with me. He would cancel dates at short notice, etc. And one day, he broke up with me. On that day, my world completely fell apart, and I felt my life slipping through my fingers. I have severe anxiety disorder, and I was in hospital 2 or 3 times with serious crises. Alex was in the middle of us, my best friend of 8 years and my best friend of about 2 years. Gabriel dated my best friend for about 5 days until she told him she was in love with a woman. Gabriel is a tall white boy who loves volleyball and really liked my friend. They broke up when John and I were 2 months into our relationship. Gabriel messaged me because I didn't look well, and we started talking, and I developed a feeling for him. He declared himself to me by message and asked me out on a date. I was still confused about my feelings for John, but I accepted. It was an incredible night. We went to the movies. He took me out for a fast food dinner. We went on some rides that were in a recreation area, and on the way out of the mall while we were waiting for the app driver, he got down on one knee and asked me to marry him with a pair of rings that sparkled in an inexplicable way, and said to me, "I know you still love him, but I promise you that I'll take care of you until you can't remember the pain he caused you. I promise to heal every piece of your heart that has been broken." I accepted his request with tears in my eyes. He kissed my hand and then gave me a calm kiss full of love and tenderness, which even in the midst of my tears was magical. One day, looking at Gabriel's cell phone, I joined a group that included John, Alex, and 2 other mutual friends. Note, my ex and I had a healthy friendship, and he was Gabriel's friend. In this group, John talked badly about me, while Gabriel defended me, and I told Alex how bad it made me feel, since I never mistreated John. On the contrary, I just accepted every time he went out. I trusted him. I helped him with his family problems. I thought it was over. But one day when Gabriel, Alex, and I were walking home from school, I felt something chasing us, but I ignored it. On the stairs to talk, Alex looked at his cell phone and proposed that the three of us go and get some ice cream. But as my grandmother had asked me to come in, I said, "Go and get something for me. It can be one of the fruit you choose." And they said, "Okay." Gabriel sealed his lips on mine and left with Alex. A few minutes later, Gabriel came back to my house alone and told me that John had cornered him and almost beaten him up, claiming that Gabriel had shown me the messages from the group that were just the boys and that they had promised not to show those conversations to anyone. I was scared after that episode and wondered how he knew if the only person I had told was Alex. When I confronted him about it, he shrugged and said, "Oh, he got away with it." There were two other times when John wanted to attack Gabriel, and Alex was involved in his ambushes, and since then I fought with